Hello, I am Abel Ortega, licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am the owner of Ortega and Associates Christian Counseling. And today on this YouTube, I am going to talk to you about marriage. I'm going to give you some marriage advice. And you can, if you want to, ask questions through my website that you can find easily. Right now, I'm going to read Matthew chapter 19, verses 3 and 4, because we're talking about marriage, and God has the definition of marriage. And he answered, Jesus Christ answered to the people that were asking him, the Pharisees, and he said, "Have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and the two shall be one flesh." So basically, Jesus Christ was saying that a marriage is between one man and one woman. And as we keep reading the Bible and keep reading the New Testament, we discover that there should be no divorce, that God hates divorce. So then this marriage between one man and one woman is supposed to be for life. I know that today there are a lot of people and a lot of organizations and politicians and so forth, they're trying to redefine marriage and say anybody can be married. Not so. God's way is one man and one woman, and if we violate the way that God created us to be, we're going to have trouble, and it's going to be misery, and it's going to be consequences that we're not going to like. So when I talk about marriage, I'm talking about God's definition of marriage. One man, one woman, married to each other for life. Now then, first point I want to tell you is that marriage is difficult. When we're young, we believe that because we love each other, marriage will fulfill our expectations. And early on in the union, however, we begin to experience strife, confusion, and disappointment. And like I said, it's confusion. We become confused. Wait a minute, what's going on? We're supposed to agree with each other. This person doesn't agree with me. Something's wrong here. And we usually assume the other person is wrong. And I want to tell you that strife, confusion, and disappointment, arguing, unmet expectations, all of these things are common. I'm not using the word normal. I'm using the word common to most, if not all, marriages. I don't use the word normal because if we actually really submit unto God and allow God and Jesus Christ to be our life and our Lord, these strifes and confusions and disappointments and squabbles and anger will dissipate greatly. So this is common. Arguing, not getting along, having problems, having strife is common to most, if not all, marriages. Some are so surprised by the level of conflict that they experience that they give up. And they begin to believe that they made a wrong choice. They shouldn't have married that person, married the wrong person, because they think that if they married the right person, then they wouldn't be having this problem. So some leave the marriage and now they're looking for the right partner, the right person. And if they either stay single the rest of their life or they marry again, and they're going to find the same thing. They're going to find that marriage will create these things. There's going to be problems. There's going to be arguing. And we need to know that, expect that, and know a solution. And then there's some people that have an affair, and in this affair, there is no arguing, there is no strife, there is no confusion, everything is nice, and so they say, well, I found my lifelong partner. No, what you found is sin, and you get along right now. But all of this, if you eventually divorce your wife and marry this one, or divorce your husband and marry this one, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have the same conflict, confusion, argument, disappointment. That's common to all marriages, well, most if not all marriages. So now I want to give you some facts about marriage, some facts that should help bring understanding and hopefully some relief. Fact number one, all marriage partners, people, husband, wife, they are all incompatible. Compatibility in marriage does not exist. And I hope you heard that, and I hope you understood that. All marriage is incompatible. Compatibility in marriage does not exist. And if you think it does, and if you think you're supposed to be compatible, then you're going to be surprised and confused. And I know that today's divorce, all they have to say is incompatibility. Well, that's everybody. Each of you are in two individuals, one individual, and each of you are different. You were raised different. You have different perspective, different philosophy, different thinking, different ways of handling situations, different desires, different expectations. All marriage is incompatible, and it is your task. God assigns you a task to turn this marriage into a union that becomes one flesh. And that requires a lot of yielding, that requires a strong relationship with God, that requires reading the Bible constantly and daily, that requires being in church, being in Bible class, that requires being a godly person. And if you're not willing to pay the price for that, then you're going to have unfulfilled needs in the marriage. You're going to have expectations that will not be fulfilled. You're going to have results that will surprise you. I'm telling you what will give you a good marriage. Point number one, marriage is not compatible, it's all incompatible. Two people, they are incompatible to each other. Another fact in marriage is that your spouse has greater effect on you than anyone else. You have greater effect on your spouse has greater effect on you than anyone else. And that is because you're married, because you love each other, because you spend a lot of time together. You have greater effect on the other one. Someone can tell you a sentence, and then your wife, your husband can repeat that sentence, and your reaction to your spouse is going to be greater than the other person, the friend, the stranger, whatever, because you have greater effect on each other because of the marriage bond, because of the love that is there, and because of the expectations. You expect that your spouse will uplift you and uphold you and comfort you and support you and be on your side all of the time, as it should be. And when that does not happen, then you are bitterly disappointed, sometimes very angry, because this should not have happened. And so then I'm saying your spouse has greater effect on you than anyone else. That is a true fact, and you might as well learn that now. So whatever you say to each other has greater impact than what anybody else says. So guard your words. There's some people think, I can say whatever I want, what is it? They used to say, love doesn't ask for forgiveness or whatever. Nah, love always asks for forgiveness, because we're not thinking of ourselves. We're thinking of the other person. Love always admits that I'm wrong, because we're thinking of the other one and not our own self. So you have a greater effect on your spouse than anyone else. What you say will go into the individual, create ideas, feelings, etc. So you need to guard yourself and yield and nurture one another. All right? The next point is, if you're going to eliminate, take care of, solve, resolve certain problems, one of the ways to do it is to yield to each other. Yield. Y-I-E-L-D. Yield to each other. A lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people are self-focused, self-centered, and they figure that person is supposed to do what I want. And not necessarily so. The Bible talks about yielding one to another. The Bible talks about loving one another, giving to one another, putting the other person first instead of your own self. So one of the solutions, one of the ways of living so that you will avoid unnecessary conflict, or so that you can resolve conflict, is yielding to each other. Now, I'm going to give you one example of yielding to each other. This is about communication, and I'm going to give you one example of yielding to each other. When one spouse presents an issue, the husband, the wife, is talking to the other one about a problem, an issue that involves both of them, an issue that the one who's talking doesn't like, coming in late, using these words, behaving this way, consuming alcohol, texting to the women, whatever it is, whatever the issue is. When one spouse presents an issue, this is not the time, and then you gotta listen to this part. When your spouse presents an issue to you, a problem that she or he has that is important to them, and they believe, that person believes you're doing something that bothers that person, when your spouse presents an issue, this is not the time. This is what I want you to hear. This is not the time for you to present your own issue. I'm going to read it again. When one spouse presents an issue, this is not the time for the other spouse to present an issue also. Say, for instance, your husband is talking to you about the fact that you spend a lot of time on the phone, talking to your sister, your mother, or whatever, and you say, well, you spend a lot of time talking to your friends. That's not going to go anywhere. All that's going to do is create an argument, and the argument has a great chance of escalating, and at the end of that argument, you will have gotten nowhere. So you cannot do that. I'm not saying that this person who presented you this thing and said you're always talking to your sister or your mother, I'm not saying that person is right. I'm saying when that happens, you cannot present an issue of your own. If you do, then you'll have an argument. That's all that's going to happen. All that's going to occur from that conversation is an argument, and the possibility of escalation. At the end of that 15, 20, 30 minutes or an hour, you guys will be very, very angry at each other, and nothing, absolutely nothing, has been resolved. What are you supposed to do? You are supposed to, this is the procedure. This is the procedure. Well, before I get to the procedure, let me just make sure that I'm not missing any point. I already said this. This will cause a situation where no one is listening. An argument is sure to start and escalate. Each spouse will feel angry, not heard, not valued, and the issue will come up again. If she brought up this issue, or the husband brought up the issue, all you guys did was argue, and that issue is still there. A day from now, a week from now, a month from now, it's going to come up again. And what have you done? Wasted a whole lot of time, injured each other with your words, and nothing was accomplished. Now, what is the proper procedure? When your spouse presents an issue, your task is to listen, to get involved in the topic, and to try to understand the feelings and needs of your spouse, to sympathize, to ask questions designed to allow your spouse to fully express. That is the procedure. A lot of husbands will say, well, if I'm not supposed to argue with her and I stay quiet, she's going to be mad because I'm not talking. Correct. So I'm not saying don't talk. I'm saying get involved in the conversation. For instance, your wife comes to you and says that you spend a lot of time with your friends and that you go out 2 or 3 times during the week and you spend time with your friends playing pool, bowling, whatever it is you do, and she doesn't like it, and you say, well, I'm not talking to any other women, I'm not doing anything wrong, and this is what I used to do before we got married, but she's not happy with it. And I am saying that at that point, when she brings up this issue of you spending time with your friends, what you're supposed to do is to listen and to sympathize, and your goal should be to try to understand what she's saying, try to understand her feelings, try to understand why she's saying that. Your goal is not to prove her wrong. That will get you absolutely nowhere. So I'm saying she's presenting an issue to you. You don't like the issue. You don't think she's right. What is the procedure? It is still the same. You are to listen to your spouse and get involved in the topic. For instance, she said you spend a lot of time with your friends. Okay, well, I wasn't realizing that, so tell me about it. I want to hear it. See how I'm involved? I'm not saying, what? No, I don't. You spend more time with your friends than I do. No. You say, okay, I'm hearing you. I don't quite understand it. Can you explain it some more? You're getting involved. You're asking questions. You're with the issue. And your goal is to try to understand the feelings and the needs of your spouse at that point, at that level with that issue. Your goal is not to prove that person wrong or to make sure that this person isn't infringing upon your rights. There's more to say, and at this point, we're going to stop this one, and we will start another one, because I want to finish this topic of marriage and advice. I'm Abel Ortega, licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, ordained minister. I'm the owner of Ortega and Associates Christian Counseling. You can call us at 605-5963. Text or call if you want information about our counseling. Thank you. Bye-bye.